Well, this isn't very good. It looks like The Mandalorian and Grogu is going to drop 69%, give or take, in weekend 2 at the box office. And Geeky did a video yesterday talking about how it is low budget horror that's actually taking out Star Wars. And we have another horror movie, I guess, comedy / horror, coming next week with Scary Movie. And we also have Masters of the Universe. And I'm sorry, I don't think Masters of the Universe, I'm going to be real with you, I think it looks good. I don't think it's going to do well. I think there's too much working against it. And I really am starting to think that that Gen Z audience that they're all trying to chase, they don't want your old man stuff anymore. They want their own stuff. And it is indie horror. Love it or hate it. And I actually kind of like it. I watch it with my kids. I take my kids to go see horror movies. I used to watch horror movies back in the day. But their idea of a horror movie is very different from what mine was. You know, when we were kids, it was all, you know, Jason and Freddy and chainsaws and gore and Alien and all that stuff. Theirs is more, it tends to be more psychological. But I think in some ways that's scarier than just seeing somebody get their head lopped off with a chainsaw. You know, because your brain can work up all kinds of ideas. It gets to a point where sometimes with horror movies where there's so much violence and so much blood that you just kind of detach and it doesn't feel like there's any stakes anymore. It's like, whatever, everybody's just meat, you know? But we're going to talk about Star Wars being meat and being massacred by these horror movies. And it's not just that. It's played out exactly the way we thought it was going to, which is the people who are still into Star Wars, who wanted to go see the Disney Plus show on the big screen, they already went. They went opening weekend, and that's it. You know, I don't think this one, especially even compared to other Star Wars movies, I don't think this one is going to get repeat viewership because it basically is just an episode or multiple episodes of a Disney Plus show. And we saw it, we reviewed it. If you're thinking we're Star Wars haters, that is not the case. We actually gave it a pretty decent review, and people did not like our review because we gave it a decent review. But for what it was okay. I think we gave it like a 6. It was all right. You know, I don't feel like I wasted my life or anything like that. I didn't walk out of the theater angry. I just walked out of the theater like, yeah, that was a pretty good episode of The Mandalorian. Next. But let's talk about all this, what this means for Star Wars. I don't think it's very good news for Star Wars as a franchise. I don't know now how Starfighter is going to do, especially if it ties into the Rey movie. That would be the dumbest thing they could possibly do, Disney could do. Like, hey, let's try to pivot people in another direction, get them thinking about the original trilogy again, get them thinking about the prequels again, get them thinking about the Mandalorian and Grogu again. Let's, pivot everything away from the sequels, and then we're going to drop Starfighter next year, and it's going to lead into another, sequel era movie with Rey. Like, don't do that, Disney. Maybe they'll learn something. Maybe they'll have a Rey cameo that they'll cut from that movie or something, but we'll see. Disney doesn't learn. It takes a long time for Disney to learn. They're a very big company. It's like turning the Titanic around, right? I don't know. Before we get into it any further, please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants, guys. Go out to more.clownfishtv.com. That's more.clownfishtv.com for more Clownfish TV. We've got more episodes out there that you will not find anywhere else. So check it out, including some talking about Star Wars and comics, and there's all kinds of podcasts and everything out there. And speaking of podcasts, if you'd like to listen to the audio version of Clownfish TV, you can find it on iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, wherever you listen to podcasts, so you don't have to watch us bob up and down on YouTube. And if you're listening in the audio version, we're on YouTube where we bob up and down for the entire video. That's like a thing. That's a thing we do. That's a thing we do. All right. And the thing Disney Star Wars does is underperform movie after movie after movie. And this one's looking pretty bad. In fact, Reddit in the Star Wars subreddit had to admit it is the biggest drop off ever for a Star Wars movie. Now, it could, look different come Monday or Tuesday once they get the final totals in, or it could be worse. It could be like, oh yeah, it was like, 72% drop off, but it's pretty much a massacre at this point. No pun intended. Forbes, Mandalorian and Grogu headed toward 69% dive at weekend 2 box office. The indie film sensations Backrooms and Obsession are poised to blast The Mandalorian and Grogu from the top of the domestic box office as the Star Wars film heads into its second weekend of release. Directed by Kane Parsons, Backrooms earned $10 million in Thursday night previews ahead of opening in over 3,000 North American theaters on Friday. Deadline projected the film is headed toward a $33 to $35 million opening day. They're saying it's going to do 76 to 79 million. So almost as much as Mando and Grogu, and it's a horror movie from A24. Even with those numbers, Backrooms, a horror thriller, was projected to knock The Mandalorian and Grogu from the top of its opening box office perch. Instead, they're saying The Mandalorian and Grogu is looking at third place, potentially behind Obsession, and Obsession is doing really well too. And if you criticize Obsession, I haven't seen it, but if you criticize it, all the stands come out, so I'm not even going to get into that. But it's doing very well. It only cost $1 million, and it was a YouTuber that put it together. The horror thriller starring Indy Navarrete and Michael Johnson has been overperforming since its May 15th opening, earning $17 million in its first weekend, which was followed by an unprecedented 39% increase in domestic revenue May 22nd through the 24th, while it earned $23 million. That does not happen. This is what happened to the original Star Wars. The original Star Wars opened in like 30 theaters. You'd have to look into that. It was not a blockbuster. Nobody expected Star Wars to perform the way it did. In fact, I think they threw Star Wars in for free if you booked this other movie. I think it was it Tomb of Dracula? It was a horror movie. And it's like, okay, well, you book this movie theater owner, we'll throw this Star Wars thing in for free. 32 screens, and it smashed records. Actually, Star Wars adjusted for inflation. I just read the other day, adjusted for inflation, the original Star Wars would be between 3.5 to 3.7 billion in today's money. That's how much money it's done. It's insane. And that was from repeat viewings, and that was word of mouth. I mean, the original Star Wars was pretty much where these independent movies are now, where it depended heavily on word of mouth. And now it's getting its ass kicked. It's become a corporate franchise under Disney, and it's getting its ass kicked by $1 million horror movies. It's just so weird. It's, full circle, Master Apprentice, all that. With Deadline's projection of another $25 million from 2,700 North American venues through Sunday, Obsession, should the trade's forecast hold, will cross the $100 million mark against the film's $1 million budget before marketing costs. That's actually less money than it cost to make the Blair Witch Project. The Force is not awakening The Mandalorian and Grogu. With the power plays in full force from YouTube filmmakers Kane Parsons and Curry Barker, there's no doubt the film taking the biggest hit this weekend is Mando. Deadline is projecting a 69% drop at the domestic box office for the latest Disney Star Wars movie, which, if it holds, would equate to a second weekend frame tally of 24 million from 4,300 theaters. If Deadline's forecast holds, it will boost the film's 10-day domestic tally to 136 million. Now, all the Star Wars defenders are going to be like, well, that's almost the production budget. I'm like, dumbasses. They have to split that with the theater, and then we got the marketing costs. Conservatively, for Mando and Grogu to break even, I think we're looking at like 400 to 500 million to break even. Starring Pedro Pascal and Sigourney Weaver, The Mandalorian and Grogu earned 81.6 million from May 22nd to 24th and tacked on another 16 million on Memorial Day to bring the 4-day opening to 98 million, which is still less than they thought it was going to do. They thought it was going to be an easy 100 to 120 million. That did not happen. They said, while 98 million is a great opening for most films, it's soft for anything from Star Wars. With the $98 million 4-day domestic tally, the Mando movie, which had reportedly a budget of 165 million before marketing, now holds the unenviable distinction of being the lowest opening of any Star Wars film behind Solo: A Star Wars Story. That is Disney Star Wars. Again, have to put that asterisk in there because I know somebody's going to be in the comments and be like, Clone Wars did bad. Yeah, the Clone Wars pilot movie did really, really bad at the box office. It only did like $14 million. But that's because people are looking at it, they're like, it's a Star Wars cartoon. Like, what? And who's the orange chick? Like, what? What is this? Cartoon Network? What is this? Yeah. Solo, by the way, dropped 65% in domestic ticket sales the second weekend. By contrast, the Disney Star Wars film with the biggest 3-day domestic opening was The Force Awakens. Yeah. So It's pretty bad. They said Michael Jackson's actually going to do pretty good this weekend too. Reddit. This is again coming from the Star Wars subreddit. Top comment. They kind of missed the window on the Baby Yoda hype. I agree with that. And then they threw away the excitement of him training with Luke like one episode later. They should have made the movie about, they actually should have saved the Luke Skywalker redemption for this movie. If you brought proper Luke back in this movie and had him training Grogu, and that was the plot of this movie, it would have done so much better. In my opinion, in my humble opinion, but whatever. What do I know? Technically, not even one episode. They ended the Jedi training subplot in a different show. Yeah, it was in Boba Fett. Yeah. I would have liked Book of Boba Fett more if it didn't become a stealth Mando season halfway through. That is also true. They didn't trust Boba Fett enough to carry his own show. And everything that Mando is doing, Boba Fett should have been doing. Like, it should be the Boba Fett show. That should be Boba Fett doing all this crazy shit, because that's what we're kids. We're playing with our action figures. This is the kind of stuff we thought Boba Fett was doing, even though he only had like 2 lines in Empire Strikes Back. We're like, man, he's so cool. He probably gets in all kinds of crazy shit. And then Return of the Jedi comes along. He just, like a dumbass, gets knocked in the Sarlacc pit and becomes a burp joke. But it's like, come on, needed more time with the Sand People. Unless I want to be a gangster. Boba himself was a boring fat guy floating around a back to tank in his tighty whities for a whole season. Yeah, people call him Boba Fat. And like, I love Tamora Morrison. I think he's awesome. And I feel really bad for him. He got shafted. He totally got shafted. But there's no way there's ever going to be a Boba Fett movie with Tamora Morrison, especially after this. Like, Disney's gonna have to think long and hard about the future of Star Wars, because this is absolutely catastrophic for them. But I don't know if anybody could have seen this coming. I mean, it's a 1-2 punch from 2 low budget horror movies, and then we have Scary Movie coming next week and He-Man, and it's very possible that the Mandalorian and Grogu could drop out of the top 5 next weekend. And I don't know if it's gonna make a profit. I don't know if it's gonna break even at this point. I mean, this really is the worst case scenario for Disney for this. I'm just saying. Anyway, I'm going to wrap it up. Please subscribe. We'll talk later.